Welcome to I Know How You Feel, a podcast for common experiences not so commonly shared. This is a platform for growth, connection, and mindful conversation. Today on the podcast, we have Evelyn. Evelyn is an Ecuadorian woman living in the city of New York. Family is at the heart of everything she does, and she loves spending quality time with her loved ones. She has a passion for traveling and adventure as a way to explore new cultures, create memories, and find inspiration. She is excited for the most beautiful adventure of all coming this year, becoming a mother. Let's connect with Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, Kimberly. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to talk about this topic today because it touches so many women's lives. Endometriosis is a chronic condition that affects women where tissue similar to the lining of the uterus grows outside of it, which leads to pain, infertility, and a lot of other health issues. 1 in 10 women and girls are estimated to have endometriosis globally, and it takes 7 to 10 years on average to get a diagnosis despite extremely painful periods. And that is where I would like to start your story. So let's talk about your period. I think that's the origin story for a lot of women with endometriosis. So tell us, how old were you when you got your period and what were your symptoms like?
Okay, so this is the thing, right? I got my period when I was 9 or 9 and a half because I had to ask my mom first because I forgot that part. And that's when I got my period for the first time for 2 months. And it was just, I guess that was just normal. It just lasts 3 days, 1 month, and the other month it just lasted 4 days, and then it just disappeared. And my mom is still took me to the doctor, and they said that was normal. And but I never felt anything weird when I was 9 years old. So when my period came back when I was 11 and a half or 12, and that's when everything started to go downhill for me. It was just all the time too much pain. I could not resist the pain. It was so intense that I will pass out from the pain. So that was my start, starting to be a teenager, and it was not looking good at all with my period. Every month was just too much, or it was so much blood. I was all the time scared, looking at my body and saying, "What is going on?" And all the time crying and asking my mom if that was, normal. Starting my period was not great at all. Emotionally, the changes on my body and everything was just too much. That first year when I got my period was a lot for me.
You said you were a teenager when all of that started happening. How did that affect your life as a teenager? Could you not go out with friends? Did you have to miss school because of that?
Yes, definitely. I used to love to be around people. I had such a great a large group of friends and a lot of activities. I love the bicycle, playing soccer, just being outside. I love to climb trees because growing up in Ecuador we have a lot of trees of mango trees. So I used to love climbing all of that. I will pass out from the pain too. I will have to miss school, and then I always have to have a note. I will miss sometimes 2 to 3 days because those were the painful days for my period. Sometimes it will last 7 days or a little bit more, up to 10 days, my period. And so the first 3 days I will have to miss school. It was that painful for me that I will have to miss school.
What did the doctors in Ecuador say, or what did they suggest for pain or to help you when you went to talk to them about everything?
Well, that was the thing. My mom took me to the first doctor, and this doctor, he was a male doctor, and he was like, "It's okay, that's normal. Every girl has to go through this pain. That is to become a woman." So they were like, "This is gonna go away, so don't worry about it. Just keep your life like it is." But I was so depressed all the time that I knew my period was gonna come, and I literally I would lie and ask my dad, like, this is something that my dad always laugh about. Like, I'll be like, why you didn't make me a man? I hate this. I didn't want to be a woman at all. That's, at that point, my dad still laughed about that. Like, I guess that we still, all of us remember that every time that I'll get my period, I will cry and I will be mad at my dad and be like, why you didn't make me a man? The doctors just keep saying like it was just okay, it was just fine. So she took me to another doctor, and he said the same thing. Um, I my mom would try to go to different doctors just to have a different opinion, and because she could see that I'm in pain. But the doctor all the time they said the same thing, that it was just a normal part of being a woman. We have to go through this.
After they told you that it was very normal for you to go through this, did they prescribe you birth control? Because that seems to be like the fix all when you go and have period issues.
Yes, definitely. That was the first thing that they suggest. But I'm like, I was just 12. How I can go through? And my mom was like, no, it was just 12 years old. So of course she was not gonna allow them to put me in birth control so early. For me, I mean, at the end we have to agree to, because the pain was too much, and that was the only thing, quotations. That was the only thing that was gonna help. So I started birth control for the first time when I was 14, if I'm not mistaken. So that was another impact in my life and my hormones and my brain and everything.
I have heard that, and a lot of women say that they get put on birth control very young, to kind of minimize these period symptoms, which is what doctors often say it is. It's normal, like you said. This is what it's like to be a woman, stop complaining, like just get on birth control. And I want to veer kind of into a different question really quick and ask, now that you're an adult, because of all of those things that the doctor said, like this is what it's like to be a woman, this is normal, all of these things with that kind of extreme pain, do you internalize that as an adult? Like, do you get very easily triggered when you're in pain because of those experiences, or do you experience something else when the pain comes up?
Because I hear it so many times. I'm like, okay, so wait, it's just a normal pain. You have to push through and just don't complain. And another thing that the doctors will say, women before they would never complain about it. It was just a normal thing. They will work, they will have children. So I had an uncle that he would say something like, my mother will go to the river and wash everyone's clothes. And I'm like, yes. So when I will get my period and I will have that intense pain, I would just like breathe and be like, it's okay, it's normal, it's normal, it's normal, and that's what I always have to do. And whenever someone will ask me, like, oh, why are you in pain? I'll be like, oh, my periods. Oh, that is nothing. Oh, sometimes I will get really upset. I'm not gonna lie. But some other times I'll be like, okay, yes, they're saying that because, of course, we're just women and we just have to, be okay with it.
It's so interesting that our culture wants to minimize the pain. So now
Yes.
you grew up with these doctors telling you it's not a big deal, and now as an adult, you minimize the pain, even though endometriosis is one of like the most painful experiences you could go through. So you're going through one of the most painful things as a woman that you can experience potentially outside of childbirth, and you're just breathing through it because a man doctor told you it's normal.
And sometimes, even the women's doctor will fail you that way too. Because the last doctor that I saw in Ecuador was a woman, and she was like, "This is just the normal and what I go through seeing all the teenagers." So she's, "You don't have to worry about." It. And I'm like, "But why am I like bleeding? I'm losing all my blood. I had to change paths like a crazy person." So that was the last doctor that I saw, and I was just like looking at her, and I'm like, "But you don't feel anything?" And she's like, "No, my period is so good." I mean, I know not every woman will go through the same thing, but it's just like I would never tell a woman, "Oh, you're just overreacting." You never know. No one goes through the pain the same way, or no one feels the same way, like your period or any other thing that your body experienced as a woman and growing up.
Absolutely. Did you have a different experience when you moved to the US and saw doctors here, or was it a lot of the same?
It was just the same. The birth control was something that I had to be attached with. It was just birth control, birth control. It was only one doctor that I really liked, Dr. Kim. He actually, suggested a lot of like changing my diet a lot. He was the only doctor that actually talked to me about, hey, maybe it's your diet. Never about endometriosis, of course, but he's like, the pain, still like try to exercise as much as you can because that helps. What I would tell him is, I am trying, but the pain is so much that I was just like, I would just lay down on the floor and I don't want to move. Every move was just so painful for me. So, but like, I tried to change my diet a little bit, but still he of course put me in birth control because that was the only thing that will make my period as normal. Of course my period was less days, like it will be 3 to 4 days. It would not be 10, 12, or sometimes even 15 days. That's how long my period sometimes it will be. But still the pain was always there. My pain never went away. In Ecuador, actually, the doctors saw that I had cysts in my ovary, and they never did anything about it either. And here, they didn't do anything about it, like nothing. They were like, "Oh, that's okay. Don't worry. Just keep taking the birth control, and that will help you. That will help the cyst and the pain." But no, definitely no.
That's really wild. Besides the cysts and the period pain, did you have any other symptoms that were, popping up along the way besides those two things?
Yes, actually, my bladder became a problem, and they sent me to urologist. And from I'm pronouncing that correctly because they said that, oh, it's nothing to do with your periods or anything. But every time that I will get my period, of course, we get. I mean, normally everyone will get bloated, but I will get so bloated that I will look like I had 8 months pregnancy. Like that's how big, I will get so bloated. But and then I will feel like a heavy I don't know how to explain it. It was just like a heavy mass in my bladder all the time when I would get my period, and it was really painful just to go and pee, or just I feel like I have to pee, but I was never able to pee. When you have that necessity, oh, I had to go to the bathroom, then you sit in there, and then I would have to put my leg up or try to move in a different way. That was like something that started to be a problem for me for I guess already maybe a couple years already. That has been a problem for me.
And when you saw these doctors in the States and you were telling them about any of these symptoms, did they even mention endometriosis? At what point, seeing all these different doctors and continuing to be in pain, like at what point did you get a doctor to actually use the word endometriosis and talk about it?
Yeah, that was not even long ago. It was I think it was last year November or December. I'm like changing different doctors and gynecologists just to see what is going on. So finally I ended up in this office with this Russian doctor, and I'm explaining to him about my bladder. I'm like, I cannot pee correctly. I just pee a little bit. I actually thought that I was having problems with my kidneys or stuff like that, but all of that works fine. So I would tell him when my period was going to come or my period was leaving or all of that together, it will make my bladder just to go crazy. And so that's the first time that he's like, oh, that sounds like a symptoms of endometriosis. He's like, have you ever heard about endometriosis? And I'm like, whoa. Of course, before I would read about it, and then when I would bring it up to the doctors, they'd be like, no, that's not any symptoms. Like they will be like, you're okay. But he's like, no, that sounds like a heavy problem of endometriosis. So that's when he started like, to ask me so many questions that no doctor asked me before. And then I had that incident because I told him that I had an incident when I was living in Wyoming, like 2 years already. I am like in here in New York, and a cyst burst, and I was working and a cyst just burst inside of me, and I ended up in the ER, and they were like, oh, don't worry, it's nothing big, it's just like a cyst just burst inside of you. And I was like, wow. So I explained that to him, and he's like, that is definitely not normal. So he checked so many things. He did so many, exams, and that's when he was like, I think your problem is like endometriosis, and I'm pretty sure you have endometriosis in your bladder. So, but of course, he's not an specialist for endometriosis. So he was trying to make me go and see an specialist for endometriosis for the first time, in a very long time.
From when you had your first really horrible period until you said, like, last year was the first time they used the word endometriosis, that's over 10 years to get a
Oh yeah.
diagnosis. How did you feel? Like, finally hearing a doctor validate everything you had been through the last decade and saying, "This is what it is, and we're gonna get you to a specialist." Like, how did you feel?
To be honest, I thought that I was going to feel like relief or being happy, but I mean, I think at some point, yes, I was like, finally, someone believes me and someone actually doesn't think that I'm crazy, or they actually are seeing the whole person and are like, listening and taking care of me. But at the same times, I was just like, pretty upset because I'm like, why is it took like since I was 12 to now I'm 31, like 18 years, if I'm not mistaken with the math. To a person, to a doctor actually saying, this is what's going on, and let me listen to you, let me take care of you. So I guess, yes, a bit of like, a little bit of happiness that I was not crazy, because many of the times I just thought that I was crazy, and then I was just like actually believing what all the doctors will like tell me. I'm just complaining too much and I'm just crazy. And then now the doctor said, this is a real problem, this is what's actually happening to your body. I was mad and happy. And the doctor was, it's okay, you can, I bet you're feeling really upset at the same time. And I'm like, yes, I am upset, very upset.
Yes, I think a lot of women can relate to that experience of feeling like you described, that mixed bag of emotions. I personally experienced that after being gaslit for 20 years about all these random symptoms, and it was Lyme disease. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Of course, like you said, you feel relieved because you're like, at least I'm on a path now. But you're like, it took 20 years, decades plus. This is absurd. So yeah, I definitely think a lot of women are gonna be able to relate to that. And I'm curious, the next conversation you had with your doctor, did they start to tell you, like, how endometriosis affects your reproductive years and if you'd be able to have children?
Yes, of course. The doctor, he asked me, he was like, okay, I'm going to ask you another questions. Are you in a relationship? Are you married or something like that? And I was like, why? Because he wanted to tell me that this is something that is going to make me going to have problems in the future. Like, oh, I already have the problems and maybe I'm not going to be able to have kids. So he asked me if I was ever pregnant, and then actually I did had a miscarriage, for a previous relationship. I didn't even know that I was pregnant. I went to the doctor because I had so much pain, and they only said like, oh, that's normal. Sometimes women lose their first baby, and that is okay. So to be honest, I didn't put too much thought to that because it was just sad for me. And then so I explained that to him, and he's like, that was probably because of the endometriosis, and that's why he was asking me to go to a specialist, because the probably I will have to get surgery to clean that endometriosis and to see if that will help me maybe like in the future to have kids.
But now you're pregnant, which was a shock. And so talk to us about that. How far along are you? How did you find out? How are you feeling right now after being told this is gonna be really hard for you, and then all of a sudden it just happened?
That is just so funny. And my family, we all the time were like, I cannot believe I'm pregnant. Before I kind of knew, because the doctors will always say, because of the cyst, you're never going to be able to have, a baby and da da da. And then when the doctor told me, because of the endometriosis, the cysts, and, I was just like, I was not thinking about, oh, I'm going to have a kid, Um, and so when I'm right now 5 months, it's like it's 20. I'm 21 weeks. um, how I found out, I ended up in the hospital. I thought that I was my appendix, I had like I was having like appendicitis, like because the pain was a lot, and then I remembered about the cyst because the cyst grew back again, like because the doctor checked and everything, and he said that I have a lot of cyst in my left ovary, and a lot of cysts in my right ovary, but like a huge one. That's why he was like, okay, you really have to go, and we have to do something about the cyst. But I didn't want to go back to birth control. So I was at work. I remember that I called an Uber. I ended up in the emergency room, and I thought, like, really it was just like, oh, the appendicitis or the cyst, like nothing else. Already, because of how I had so much pain, they told me that probably the cyst burst again inside of me, so that was the reason of my pain. But the nurse was like, still, I'm gonna put you an IV and hydrate you because of your pregnancy, and I'm like, excuse me. I was just in shock. I'm like, you excuse me. I'm like, wait, give me a second. I'm like, what? Oh, I mean, like, go. I'm like, just tell me again. I'm like, what are you saying? I'm like, is my English not working very well? You're saying that I'm pregnant? And she's like, yes. No, me? Oh my God, that nurse thought that I was crazy. Of course, because she doesn't know my background. And it took me forever. I think she got really annoyed at some point that I was like, no. I'm like, seriously, me? And she was like, well, there's no one in the room. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm sorry, but just I was not expecting the word, oh, you're pregnant, you know? I was just like, but a cyst burst inside of me. And she's like, yeah, sometimes things happen. She's like, you were not planning, you know? And I'm like, well, I mean, I wanted to have kids, of course. And I remember that week, I already found a specialist for endometriosis. So I was making an appointment for like the following week to go to a specialist. Of course, now I didn't win. And so yeah, that's how I found out. And I they actually took me to do a sonogram and everything, but they couldn't find it. So I went to the doctor's office, and the hospital sent the records of, like, that they found out that I was pregnant, blood and urine, but they couldn't find the baby inside of me. So I look at the doctor, and I'm like, we were just talking about that I'm not able to have kids. So I'm like, what is going on? So he checked, and there was the little tiny bean, like I used to call him. And yeah, and he was like, wow, you're pregnant. And I looked at him, and I'm like, what? And he's like, literally, that's a miracle. So he's like, congratulations. And I'm like, you told me. And he's like, well, that congratulations. And of course, it was a shock. I was not saying like I was pissed, at the doctor, but it was just like, I could not believe it. If you've been told before and now this big thing about endometriosis, and you're not going to be able to have kids, and it's going to cost you a lot, and then you get pregnant, it's just a shock.
I know there are so many women out there that they have to go in and have procedures and like have the endometriosis. I think the word is like scraped out of them, which just sounds so
Mhm.
horrific. And that's their only opportunity to get pregnant. And so I love this part of your story because you went through so much pain for so many years and just so much medical gaslighting. So to have this miracle surprise, I really hope that it gives other women who are struggling with endometriosis hope that you can have a miracle even if you're in extreme pain and have, all of these different things going on. But I'm wondering, after you give birth, are you going to follow up with the specialist that they are sending you to, talk more about the endometriosis to see if you can do anything to improve your quality of life?
I have a new doctor. Sadly, that doctor was way too far away, and he will only deliver, will have to deliver my baby way too far away. I was not gonna be able to get there because of the traffic in New York. So I have another doctor, and I asked her about it, and she said, well, having a baby, it helps with the endometriosis for at least 2 years. But of course, she recommends me that to go and see a doctor after the baby is 1 year or like a year and a half, to see if the endometriosis, like, has been reduced, or like, what to do, like what would be the next step. So of course, yes, I will have to go and see a specialist. I wanted to make sure that I'll be okay, or like what will be the next thing that I will have to do after, the baby is, once the baby is born.
Did they say why it kind of resolves things for 2 years? Was there a reason behind it?
I would lie to you, but I know she told me, but I'm gonna blame my pregnancy brain. Because she said if someone has endometriosis, if that person can try to get pregnant, the pregnancy is one of the things that can help so much. I guess it's just because of the hormones, and it just helps to clean it up. If I understood correctly, that's what she was trying to tell me. But all my the first 3 months of my pregnancy, it was just a blur. Like every time the doctor would talk to me, I was just so worried about I was gonna lose it because of the endometriosis. I started to have problems in my pregnancy. I guess I know the majority of the women will have that problem as well, but I was bleeding. I was spotting all the time, and that was not okay. Actually, I was like in bed rest for like 2 weeks. So all the time I was just nervous and scared because if all the time you hear like you're not gonna be able to have kids, or like recently you have that doctor telling you, that's not possible, and then you get pregnant. I guess I was just so scared all the time, that I'm gonna lose this baby and I'm not gonna be able to have it because of my situation. So I feel like now that I'm a little bit more, you know, I guess calm a little bit. I'm a little bit calmed down, like of everything. I want to sit down again with my doctor that I have an appointment like in a few weeks, and ask her again to explain it to me how come then, because I can look at the internet and everything, but like I guess sometimes the internet can tell you so many things that I just want to hear from the doctor, like again, what is going on and why is it like the baby actually helps so much when you have endometriosis and then you actually are pregnant.
That makes a lot of sense, and it makes a lot of sense too that you were a little nervous at the beginning and everything went in one ear and out the other. If there's any OBGYNs or endometriosis specialists listening, please comment and tell everybody why. so or
Definitely.
so we can all stay on the same page. But I have just one last question for you. I am wondering what you would say to a younger gal who's going through the same thing you did and has a ton of pain and is being gaslit. What kind of advice would you give her in terms of advocating for herself and listening to her body?
Um, yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking. What would I say to myself before when I was that age? But I guess the only thing that I could say for sure is just don't stop, and then do your research too. Try as much as you can to get. Right now there is you get so much stuff from the internet that is true, but some things that actually that you can find and get yourself through, because actually like how that's how I told the doctor, like I think I have all of these problems, so I want you to like actually like listen to me and tell me what it is. But like you know I don't know if it forced the people like the doctors, like I don't know if that's the right word to say, but it's just like actually tell them to listen to you, to actually sit down, don't just answer the questions just right away, just listen and like just actually push through as much as you can, because it's your body. And then like going through so much pain is not okay, and it doesn't matter what people tell you just because you're a woman. No, like just actually push through so much, like as much as you can, to actually have a good doctor that will listen to you and actually help you go through like whatever is the situation. Can be like the endometriosis, and not don't be hard on yourself, and you're not crazy. You're not crazy, the pain is real, and you should definitely work really hard to go to get the help that you need, definitely.
I really love that advice. And that's so true. If you're going through something and you have a doctor blow you off, or you wait an hour for them to come into the room and they only give you 5 minutes or anything like that, definitely advocate for yourself. Go get a different doctor. Tell them right up front, hey, I'm struggling. I'm in a lot of pain and I need you to listen to me. I've been through the ringer. So I think that's really great advice. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us. And I'm definitely looking forward to internet stalking your cute baby.
Oh, definitely, you'll see a lot of pictures.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. If you'd like to connect with me or have an experience you'd like to share, shoot me an email at letstalkitoutproductions@gmail.com. I Know How You Feel drops every other week. See you next time.